an article on secret societies, from the first volume of the American Ecclesiastical Review, published in 1889. Must a society be condemned by the Church before it be forbidden Catholics to be members? Is the Society of KP a society forbidden to Catholics? How are we to judge and what are we to do in regard to secret societies in this country? Before you do anything, listen. All societies which, by reason of their principles and practice, lead men into error and sin, are forbidden by the law of God, and hence Catholics cannot conscientiously be members of such societies, whether they are secret or not. Certain societies of this character the Church has condemned by name, because though their object was known to be error and evil, by reason of their hostility to lawful authority in Church or State, they managed in many instances to veil this object under false pretexts of social and civil good, and took great pains to allure the unwary, especially the young, to cooperate in their end. Such are the so-called Freemasons, Carbonari, and Fenians. These secured a more successful mode of action by pledging their adherence to absolute secrecy, and in many cases to blind obedience in carrying out the dictates of their leaders. There are other societies which, pledging their members to secrecy as to their object and to their transactions, may or may not be bad and hence forbidden. Secrecy itself is no test in the matter, since men have a right to protect their legitimate interests by keeping their transactions from public scrutiny. But since, on the other hand, such societies may be hurtful to the true interests of a Catholic, the Church, whose duty it is to inform and warn her children against committing themselves to a wrong course, must have the means to satisfy herself that a society observing a secret do not shield by that secret a sinful object. Hence, in behalf of her adherents, she claims the right to inquire and examine into the end and means employed by a society which Catholics would lawfully join and cooperate with. A society whose aim is honorable cannot refuse a discreet insight into its constitutions and workings to those who require such insight, not to frustrate, but to further by sanctioning its ends. To whom such right belongs has been defined. Episcopis non solum ius sed etiam officium inquerendi inheret. The state has and may exercise a similar right towards corporations for the protection of its citizens. By the way, that Latin quote was from the Council of Baltimore. If a society refuse such exposition as would allow the forming of a fair judgment concerning its true character, the presumption is that its end and means are bad. Si autem adscripti nil mali in eis agant exeant e tenebris, also from the Council of Baltimore. If a society exacts from its members an oath of blind obedience to whatever command may be given them, it is a priori forbidden to Catholics, because such an oath is an infringement upon the right God has to man's use of his liberty in the exercise of good. A religious vow of obedience never binds to the commission of sin, but the oath administered in the secret societies make no discrimination between right and wrong. In the light of these principles, how is a priest to act with persons who declare themselves members of secret societies or propose to join them? First, in the Confessional, informing one's judgment as to the disposition of a penitent who belongs to a so-called secret society, it may be of use to remember that in almost every case, to leave such a society means forfeiture of certain temporal benefits, such as help in sickness or death, patronage in business, social popularity, often a sure livelihood itself. To compel a person, therefore, to sustain such grave losses, the fact of the forbidden character of a society should be certain. And even then, the measures adopted for reclaiming an errant sheep should be as moderate as the utmost limits of charity allow. How is a confessor to ascertain the fact that a secret society is forbidden to his penitent? There are 3 definite marks, either or all of which will determine it. 1. What is the object of the society? Is it plainly bad, that is to say against justice or charity, such as hostility to parties or persons who have a lawful right of existence, or fraudulent combines by which the community is injured in its rights and privileges? If so, a Catholic cannot belong to it. and if a Catholic does belong to it, he owes proportionate reparation of losses caused by injustice or scandal on his part. Second is the secret observed in the society absolute, so that it cannot be revealed even to the ecclesiastical authorities. If so, the society is forbidden to Catholics, who can have no secrets in the tribunal of conscience where there is question of right and wrong. Third, do the members take an oath of blind and unrestricted obedience to their leaders? If so, it is evident from what has been said above that the society is prohibited. In these cases, a Catholic is bound to leave it. He is bound to abstain from cooperating with it and from promoting its interests. He is bound to make known its leaders and abettors to the proper authorities, so that these may take measures to guard their flock from the wolves hidden in sheep's clothing. Also from the Council of Baltimore. And if a Catholic refuse to do the one or the other, with such prudence as the circumstances may demand in order to avoid greater evil, then he not only forfeits his right to communion with the Church and of being absolved at her tribunal, but he falls under the censure of excommunication reserved to the sovereign pontiff. 2. In the pulpit. Here let us first say what a priest is not at liberty to do upon his own responsibility, that is, to denounce any society in public by name. Whatever the society be, or be called, its members are subject to the tribunal of the Confessional and there to be judged, but as a corporation they cannot be branded as forbidden by the Church. To leave it to the discretion of individuals to pronounce sentence, as it were, of public excommunication upon a body of men, about whose principles and actions there must always be more or less of a doubt, would open the way to numberless acts of injustice and scandal. Men differ in their judgment not only as to what are the specific evidences of evil principles, but also as to the principles when applied to different individuals or classes of individuals. It may be that two societies with the same name, aim, constitutions, etc., have a wholly different effect upon the class of people to whom they are respectively applied. This may arise from different national aspirations, from natural disposition, antecedents, government, etc., all of which add a certain coloring to the actions of a union and determine its results for good or evil. Thus, a society may in all reason be condemned in revolutionary France or in Canada, which might be suffered in France at peace or in the United States. We cannot measure the danger of a force without computing the quality of material upon which it acts. Nevertheless, within the same circle, where the conditions are alike, there must be uniformity of judgment and action. With this view, the late plenary council takes the matter in hand and appoints a special commission to pronounce upon the question, and if the commission disagree, decision is reserved to the Holy See. Until we therefore hear from the commission through the diocesan bishops that this or that secret society is condemned by name, we cannot so mention it in the pulpit. Hence all questions about KP or any other name, excepting the three mentioned in the beginning as explicitly condemned, are out of order. But the priest can and is obliged to warn his people against all such societies as shun the light of legitimate inquiry. Qui enim veritatem facit venit ad lucem, qui vero male agit, odit lucem. Though a society may not be expressly condemned, it does not always follow that a Catholic may lawfully join it, for not everything is licit which is not condemned by name. This must be made well understood, above all to the young, who are not guided by reason but often follow their desires where no positive precept prevents them. Hence, says Leo XIII in his encyclical letter Humanum Genus, Juvenes admonendi sunt, quod non omnia licere quae non sunt expresse damnata. Parents and teachers of Christian doctrine are to be instructed that they instill a wholesome suspicion against those hidden agencies which entice youth all the more easily because of their mysterious character, their loud pretensions to a universal love of mankind, and the empty sounds of humanity and liberty to which they join all kinds of alluring methods of display to captivate the senses. To give greater force to these warnings, the grave censures of the Church are to be made clearly known as falling upon all such who wantonly join these pernicious associations under whatever name or form. Thus the faithful are to be inspired with salutary fear when prudence and childlike confidence in the maternal admonitions and the wisdom of the Church, prohibiting such unions, are without effect. Has as censuras nullo modo aut tacendas aut dissimulandas esse, sed manifeste promulgandas. From the Council of Baltimore. Yet, while the teaching and warnings of a zealous and prudent pastor will put the members of his flock upon their guard, and frustrate in a manner the machinations of evil secret societies, he will know that human nature needs to be helped in other ways also. The temporal advantages which association secures are, like the fleshpots of Egypt, a constant temptation to the man in politics, in trade, in daily intercourse with the non-Catholic world around him. Hence there remains a further work to be done in regard to secret societies which threaten the faith and virtue of Catholics and the public peace, and that is the work 3 in the parish. The most direct way to wean any person who still values his religion from the influence of dangerous societies which offer temporal advantages is to make a similar offer. This is done by having beneficial societies with a Catholic tendency and practice. The simple truth on the subject of dangerous associations preached in the Church, refraining from all personal application, will make its way and stir remorse without engendering that bitter feeling of resentment which comes from mere abuse. A considerate mode of reasoning with one or another of the more influential members of the secret societies may draw them over, especially if they are made to feel that confidence is reposed in them as leaders for a movement towards good. What numberless resource has not every pastor around him to facilitate such a work by arousing a proper enthusiasm in behalf of it? We can here only indicate the general drift of such efforts, which affection and interest in the welfare of a parish will mature into success. As regards the young, especially the young men, they should be led to forming such a society immediately on leaving school. It is the most dangerous as also the most important age of life. It is the age when enthusiasm is highest and may be molded into good or left to headlong advance to ruin. In many parishes, the children, when they make their first Holy Communion, renew their baptismal vows and make a solemn promise never to join any forbidden society. This is a good starting point. The pastor, the teachers, have still their influence with them, which may be maintained through a well-managed society for all the days of their lives. These societies should have, if possible, all the advantages which can be offered by those against whom they are designed as a wholesome protection for the faithful. But while that may not always be done, it is a consoling reflection to think that the whole-souled interest of a priest supplies to the general dispositions of young people the place of every sort of material attraction. Sometimes, a mission is used as the means to effect a general reform in the parish, and to bring back men from some secret society which has perhaps a strong hold upon them because it is not nominally condemned. The missionary can say things in the confessional and pulpit for or against such associations, either of which may seriously compromise the pastor's future position in the parish. Everyone knows how that may happen and what trouble it may cause, yet there is perhaps no fault except this, that pastor and missionary had no express understanding in regard to the character of the secret societies which exist in the place. The one has his knowledge from long experience and frequent contact with perhaps personally irritating circumstances. The other judges the merits of a case as it is presented to him and pronounces a sentence which may reverse the judgment of the pastor and further binds his hands among his own people. Both act in their legitimate right and create a scandal where there was to be a reform. The means to avoid this is obvious.
Thank you for listening to the Catholic Wire. If you have found this show helpful, please say a prayer for all our collaborators. Don't forget to subscribe to our channels and share with your friends. For questions and comments, you may contact us at thecatholicwire.org.